The Cursed House arc is one of Dandadan's best stories. It's the first arc that really made me realise just how special this series is. It has everything in it that makes Dandadan great. There are moments that warm hearts, and there are moments that break them. With the introduction of Jiji, Okarun's jealousy, and the evil eye, there are so many weird and wild and wonderful aspects to this arc that are just begging to be explored in greater depth. With the intimacy between Momo and Okarun propelling at Mach 10 at this point, it honestly has some of the sweetest moments in the entire series. So this is the Cursed House arc explained in full as part of my Dandadan Retold series. I'm not just going to go frame by frame to tell you what's happening in each panel. I want to take the time to appreciate and analyze why each moment is so special and what it adds to the story. Naturally, there are going to be spoilers for the entire arc, guys, so be warned. And let's just get to it. Coming hot off the heels of the first signs of real romantic tension between Okarun and Momo, Jiji is first introduced into the series. His appearance cuts through their dynamic like a hot knife through butter, and this is where the Cursed House arc begins. Saiko tells Okarun that Jiji is Momo's first love, and he struggles to cope with this information. Okarun's mind races with thoughts about Jiji and how incredible he must be to have captured Momo Ayase's interest in the first place. But in an incredibly wild twist, he turns out to be the strangest, most over-the-top guy to have ever walked the earth. I love him, but damn, he is ridiculous. He immediately kicks off with his signature flirtatious style, and everyone's pretty shocked. Except Saiko, who is totally fine with it. Right away, there are some pretty clear dynamics and themes being established here. We see the kind of irreverent, wild style that Jiji's going to bring forward as he joins the gang. But more importantly, we're going to see how he disrupts the relationship between Okarun and Momo, and how we see Okarun's confidence crumble in the face of his appearance. From the get-go, Okarun is compelled to think intensely about Momo and if she likes Jiji, and how cool and athletic and strong he must be if that's the case. What's captured in these first few slides is that Okarun is a massive overthinker. He can't help but go over all the possible reasons that he is inadequate when compared to Jiji. Okarun's insecurity underscores this arc quite a lot. Jiji's carefree attitude clashes with Okarun's intensity. And it's this stark contrast that immediately stirs Okarun's jealousy in the first place, despite Jiji being, well, a bit of an idiot. These feelings are soon compounded on when it's revealed that Jiji will be living with Momo for the foreseeable future. This information creates a wild frenzy in the house. Momo argues against it, Okarun is visibly panicked by the implications of it as his worst fears are suddenly realized, and Aira is, well, she's Aira. She accuses Momo of gathering allies to take over the world come Ragnarok, and she swears to gather allies herself as she runs off into the night. And that's pretty much the rest that we see of her for the entire arc. I have no words for her. She's precious, but like the way that she's moved from Christianity to Norse mythology is just bizarre. Okarun also decides that it's time for him to leave and go home. It's pretty obvious that something is wrong, and Momo can tell too. At the end of the last arc, Momo and Okarun had a lot of tension built up after overcoming the Aira situation. And the resolution of this hinted at some deeper feelings beyond friendship. However, these feelings were never really spoken. There's a lot unsaid, yes, but also that moment speaks to the type of intuition developing between the two of them. Momo doesn't need to ask him if he's okay when he's leaving, she can just kind of tell that something is off. As she watches him leave, she lingers on him. She's gonna miss him, even if it's only until tomorrow. Momo stops Okarun and signals something to him, which he fails to decipher. She wants him to be the one to say see you tomorrow. She said it first last time as they parted ways, and so she thinks it's only fair that he says it this time. Doing this is the start of an important love language that these two have between them. There's a guarantee that they'll see each other tomorrow, as well as ensuring that every time they part, they get this simple moment, a moment that's just between the two of them. It's an intimate, personal interaction that they share with each other, and only with each other. This is such a perfect moment as it captures their dynamic so well. Momo has to push Okarun out of his shell, and it shows that she cares deeply for him, in a way that she can't fully describe, and so she manifests it in this incredibly unique behaviour. It encapsulates everything that they've shared so far, an intimate, unspoken understanding that signifies both the emotional closeness that they've developed and the distance that they're still trying to navigate. It's adorable, of course, but it also highlights some of the problems that Okarun needs to overcome in this arc. He's so caught up in his head about Jiji that he struggles to even comprehend what Momo's trying to do here. She wants him to be the one to say, "See you tomorrow." She wants him to take the initiative to show that he likes her enough to do it. But he's too self-conscious about Jiji and his own developing emotions. Which does make sense. He is a teenager and he doesn't really understand what it is that he's going through right now. The introduction to this arc spells out a few things that are going to become crucial to the developing story. Number 1, Jiji's in the house, and his presence and the jealousy that he conjures in Okarun will impact his relationship with Momo a lot. 2, Okarun and Momo have some deep feelings that they don't fully understand yet, but these feelings are desperate to be acknowledged, and they manifest themselves through intimate gestures. And finally, this arc isn't just about Okarun dealing with his jealousy, it's about him coming to terms with who he is, confronting his own insecurities and eventually finding the confidence to stand up for himself and fight for his love for Momo. After Okarun leaves, Momo decides that it's time to get some answers about Jiji and why it is that he's going to be staying with them in the first place. So the interrogation begins. She discovers that Jiji's parents are in the hospital, but it's still unclear as to why Jiji has to stay with them, rather than relatives. While cleaning up after dinner, Jiji expresses that he's sorry for making fun of Momo when they were kids. The boy that she liked who made fun of her, which she described to Okarun at the beginning of the series, was Jiji. He mocked her for her spiritual protection ritual that she did when they were kids, but now he regrets it, because now Jiji can see spirits. Momo blurts out a reference to Okarun's elusive golden nut, which Jiji has never heard of, thinking she's making some kind of dirty joke. But Jiji unveils the true reason that his parents became sick in the first place, and why he came to Momo. When in junior high, Jiji moved away to a village up in the mountains surrounded by nature, a place that he loves, especially because the house that he moved into. It was big and luxurious and an exciting prospect for him, at least at first. Over time, Jiji started to realize that there was something wrong. Parts of the house became unsettling to him. His parents told him to forget it and to ignore his feelings, and over time he even convinced himself that he was just imagining it in the first place. Until one day, it showed itself to him. Twisted, deformed yokai with a terrifying grin. It stood in front of him, clear as day, as if to say, "Look at me." And since that day, Jiji has been haunted by this entity constantly. Soon after, his parents tried to end their lives, and they hired some spiritual mediums to exorcise the house, until most of them took their lives too. And so Jiji came to Momo's house in search of the most experienced medium of all, Sayako Ayase. We learn quite a lot about Jiji from this first exchange, namely that he has some degree of untapped psychic ability, which is how he is able to see the evil eye without holding Okarun's, well, you know, nuts. But most importantly, we see that Jiji is capable of being serious. Beneath all of the humor, he has a sensitive side. The thing is that Jiji has been through quite a lot. He struggled with seeing this ghost for a long time. Throughout this struggle, he's been shut down and told to ignore his feelings repeatedly, which has likely contributed to this mask of humour that he wears to the world, partially as a coping mechanism. There's no doubt in my mind that Jiji is very wacky, and he's a weird guy naturally. He's just odd. But beneath all of that is someone who holds deep regrets and deep insecurities about himself. Most importantly, we see that he has humility, and he's willing to show it when he regrets his past actions, and he's willing to step up and admit that to Momo. In a lot of ways, he's the perfect addition to our cast of characters. Dandadan is a story about teenagers who don't fit into the societal mold and find their belonging with each other. He's a great fit, which will become clearer throughout the series to come. Like Momo hides behind her facade of toughness, Okarun hides behind this geeky loner appearance, and Ida strives for unattainable perfection and popularity. Jiji uses humour to mask the deep wounds from his past. People burying their true selves beneath their masks is part and parcel to the core themes of Dandadan after all. And just like that, Psycho announces that she can't take on the contract anyway, and so instructs Momo to go in her place, to blow down the cursed house. The next day, Jiji is enrolled in school. He's presented to the class and Jiji behaves as Jiji would. There's a mixed reaction in the class to Jiji joining. Some girls whisper about him being cool and attractive, whilst some of the boys are visibly annoyed by him, as his expressiveness and his attractiveness likely conjures some serious insecurities in them. Haters gonna hate. The teacher explains Jiji's parents' situation and how he's currently going through quite a lot. He's sat at the desk beside Momo, and already the rumours start, with Jiji actively fanning the flames. Momo's friends are initially irritated by Jiji's behaviour, with Miko stating that she's annoyed by playboys generally. However, as Jiji refers to her as a beauty, her opinion swiftly changes. The thing about Jiji is that so many people are unable to express themselves in a way that Jiji can. He just says and does what's on his mind, even if it's ridiculous. And this carries its own flavour of charm, I think, especially because he's good looking and funny, which Miko picks up on. As Momo starts to explain who Jiji is, delicately trying to explain their living situation, Jiji just blurts out that they are living together and are all lovey-dovey. Okay, right, here's the thing. After getting caught up with the manga, I can say that I do love Jiji, but it's also worth acknowledging that he's written here to be kind of a foil for Okarun and inject some tension and jealousy into the romance. Getting immersed in the story means that the writer kinda needs us to dislike Jiji a bit at first, and they did the same thing with Aira. So let's just tolerate this behaviour for now and just press on, because it's a lot. Alright, let's all just keep an open mind. Momo's incredible friends and the world's greatest wingmen step up, with Muko stopping Jiji in his tracks to defend Momo and Okarun's relationship. And I've said it before, but I just love these two so much. Meanwhile, in Okarun's class, we find our boy Ken Takakura in agony at his desk. He's envisioning the relationship between Momo and Jiji, reliving the moment that he first showed up from the night before. Jiji calls her Momo, and he calls her sweet, and Okarun can't help but think that maybe she likes him back. From here, Okarun spirals. From this single interaction, he immediately goes to the absolute worst case scenario. He thinks that if she likes Jiji, then she'll end up dating him, which means that she won't want to be friends with him anymore. Then she won't like the occult, and won't be interested in what he's interested in, and only like what Jiji likes, and they won't be able to hang out anymore, and he will lose her. When I said that Okarun is an overthinker, I really meant it. He's only just made this one true friend in Momo, and he's scared that he'll lose her. At his heart, Okarun has a serious confidence issue. We've seen multiple times already when it comes to Momo, he already feels like he isn't good enough to be her friend in the first place, as if he's unworthy. and he thinks that when she figures this out, she won't want to waste her time with him anymore. Coming face to face with Jiji, someone who embodies a confidence that Okarun could only dream of having, he crumbles into his shell and imagines how it's inevitable that he's going to lose her to him. And Okarun can't handle it. It's really sad to see him this way because he's already subscribed himself to the idea that she's as good as gone. This is made all the worse because Okarun hasn't rectified his jealousy with how he actually feels about Momo. He feels this way because he likes her, a lot. Hell, he's in love with her, we can see that, even if he doesn't know it. The jealousy that he feels towards Jiji is a mirror. When he sees images of Jiji and Momo in his head, he sees them this way because this is what he wants for himself. To be with Momo, that is, not to be with Jiji. But he continues to focus inward, toward his own shortcomings, calling himself useless. He pushes himself to work out and improve. Midway through his exercise regime, Momo appears, causing Okarun to launch himself into the bushes. She's shown up to eat her lunch with Okarun while he works out, and to keep an eye on him after what she found him and Ida doing yesterday. Momo wants to spend time with him, and she secretly has a desire to make sure that she isn't losing him to another girl as well. Just as Momo offers to feed Okarun because his hands are full, Jiji shows up and quickly wins over Momo's attention with a gift for her. In reaction to this moment, Okarun decides to withdraw, walking away because he can't bear to see his worst fears come true. As Momo and Jiji are getting along so well, he decides it's time to give up on her. Like I said, Okarun pushes people away to protect himself, and this is an example of him doing just that. And Okarun's about to give up, until this anatomical science dummy changes everything. Out of the blue, a mannequin blows past Okarun. He's screaming for people to move and make way so no one will stop him. Okarun tries to warn Momo about him, thinking that this is a new threat, and as she stands up to try, Jiji leaps onto her to push her out of the way, thinking that she's in danger. It jumps over them, and that's when Momo glimpses it. A golden ball, presumably Okarun's family jewel. Jiji holds Momo back, not aware of her powers and wanting to defend her, but she manages to use her spectral abilities to latch onto the mannequin, resulting in Momo and Jiji being dragged behind it. Okarun demands that the science dummy gets away from Momo, and the chase is on. The anatomical model screams that he will not be stopped, and that he simply can't be stopped. Jiji sees Okarun as a monster, indicating further that he can see people's yokai form due to his own spiritual abilities, just like Momo. Some quick thinking and excellent teamwork between Momo and Okarun saves them from hitting power lines and a bus. In the frenzy to escape Momo's control, the mannequin breaks apart and puts himself back together, now outside of her grasp. Fortunately, all they have to do is follow his screams to a junkyard, where he lays immobile. Momo retained a part of him, his heart, which she was hurting in order to find him. While interrogating him about the golden ball, a voice is heard from the junk pile, shouting for Taro.
Taro!
Hana!
He responds and screams for Hana as he starts to dig through the mountain of rubbish, hunting for the owner of this voice. She begs him to stay away, but he relents still, shouting that he will not give up, no matter what. The gang watches on, bewildered, as he finds her, a broken dummy from another era. She asks him why. Why did he put himself in such danger to find her? And he tells her, because he loves her. Taro tells Hana that since the moment they met, his life has changed so much. Where once he saw nothing but grey, now he sees colours beyond his imagination. As Okarun watches and listens, he sees himself in Taro. His words reverberate inside of Okarun's very soul. And it finally hits him. He's in love with Momo Ayase. She brought feelings into his life that he could have never imagined, and now he finally sees in colour. Hana tells Taro they're too different, an echo of Okarun's own doubts that he and Momo come from separate worlds. But love doesn't have to make sense. Taro tells her that he doesn't care. He loves her, and no matter what happens, he will never let her go. He will stand up and he'll fight, because if he doesn't, if he lets this moment go, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. Okarun looks on and tears well up in his eyes. He knows what he must do. He knows he must stand up and fight for his own love as well. Because if Okarun surrenders and he lets Momo go without a fight, he too will regret this for the rest of his life. In Taro, Okarun sees a mirror again, not only for his love of Momo, but his own doubts and his own fears. Where Taro chooses to fight, Okarun can finally find his own courage. This moment is ridiculous. Like, it's genuinely so outrageous. These are science dummies. But it weirdly wells me up. Only Dandadan could make anatomical dummies and their love confession be this absurd yet also so moving. Up until now, Okarun's feelings were vague and something he couldn't put into words, which is why so much of it has been left unspoken between him and Momo. But seeing this, he knows what he feels, and it's love. He sees that Taro would go to the ends of the earth to fight for his love, so what business does Okarun have doing anything less than that? Momo has captured his heart, which is signified even further in this scene as she's literally holding a heart during all of this. Jiji showing up dragged Okarun to an all-time low point. The jealousy that he feels towards Jiji is immense, and it makes so much sense. Jiji and Momo do seem better suited to each other from the outside. All along, Okarun's unworthiness towards Momo comes from this feeling that he's from a different world as her, as if to say that they could never work because they are so different. He's a dork and she's quite popular. But Taro shows him no. There's no excuse to not stand up for this love if it's true. Their relationship began through their worlds colliding, like aliens and ghosts. Love is about fighting through those differences. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Going to this darkest of places, hitting this low point because of jealousy, provides Okarun with some immense opportunity to make a choice, if he has what it takes to seize it. It's forced him to explore the truth of his feelings, and now he knows what he feels. He also knows what he has to do. Anything he can to win her heart. Later that night, Okarun and the gang beg Granny Psycho to take in Hana. Whilst Hana is safe at their house, Taro is willing to go back to the school provided that he can come and see her at night. They beg Psycho to take her, and she agrees, before asking about the golden nut that they saw. Turns out it wasn't Okarun's family jewel, it was a Christmas ornament or something. I don't know, I don't think they really know. Who knows? They all start to prepare for dinner, and Jiji starts to dish out compliments to Momo. He starts to take a bit more notice of Okarun here too, wishing that he also had powers, with Okarun alluding that these powers normally come with a cost. Foreshadowing. As Momo is getting the table out, Jiji jumps to help and starts to get playful with her, culminating in him picking up a piece of dust off of Momo's head and starting to flirt with her again. Okarun watches this and he starts to regress again. We start to see him cave into himself, but during this he remembers Taro and Hana and how, no matter what, he refused to let go. That if he stands there and does nothing, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. And then he steps between them. It's a bit awkward of an excuse, but damn, you know, my boy, he finally found his balls, so I'ma let it pass. Figuratively speaking, of course, his physical testicle is still very much missing at this time. Momo asks Okarun what's wrong, and he tells her that he's decided he's not going to hold back anymore. He's going to stand up and fight. She's confused by this, as he starts putting the table down and breaks into song. It's ridiculous, it's awkward, but it is very Okarun. I don't know what to say about this strange ritual, but what is clear is that Jiji isn't one to take a musical challenge lightly. Saiko shuts down the strange sing-along and tells Momo that she'll be staying over at Jiji's house over the weekend, and to pack her underwear specifically, for some reason. Okarun panics and inquires why she would be staying with Jiji, and she finally lets him know that Jiji's house is haunted, and that's why she's going there. Okarun explodes at learning that they'll be together alone in his house, and she earnestly tells him no way, and that she wanted to invite him to come with them, because she would be uneasy on her own. And it's quite a cute little moment. It shows how far the two of them have come to start to rely on each other so heavily for support. Sticking together and fighting together has allowed them to win together. So Momo wanting to ensure that they aren't apart really speaks to how well connected they have both become to each other. Okarun stands tall and resolves to do it quickly and get it sorted quickly and to get Jiji back home quickly, to which Jiji thanks them. To end the chapter, we see Taro scaring a bunch of school kids as he runs to see Hana. His love is true, and it's so strong that it can even survive an encounter with Truck-kun. Raw power. Momo waits outside with Hana until 4 AM, waiting, barely awake. As he arrives, they announce their love, and the sun rises on a new day. All the while, Jiji can't sleep. The dark spectre that haunts him is finally in full picture. Time to go to the cursed house. Momo, Okarun, and Jiji are on the train to the mountain village where Jiji lives, playing cards to pass the time. The three of them are playing Old Maid, a game in which the Joker card serves as the Old Maid. Whoever ends up with this card at the end of the game is a loser. I mention this because it carries some important weight in the events to come and the themes of the arc. The most obvious meaning here is that Okarun ends up with the Joker card, otherwise known as the Fool, and losing to Momo and Jiji contributes to the feelings of inadequacy that Okarun is currently feeling in the face of their relationship. He's sort of feeling a bit like a third wheel to them, with the notion that he's a bit of a fool for trying to win Momo's heart still living rent-free in the back of his mind. The metaphor is made all the more potent as he's the one left holding the card when Momo swipes the winning card away from him. In a way, she has made him a fool, a reflection of how she's conjured up these feelings inside of him by making him fall in love with her. Although, this card also represents a couple more things that are more directly foreshadowing things to come. In Tarot, the Fool Arcana typically represents the start of an adventure, with the potential for something incredible to happen around the corner. But inside of this is a warning, to be cautious of naivety, as adventures are full of danger. This idea is compounded upon further as the Joker is a trickster archetype. A character who may seem to be a friend at one moment could easily turn out to be a foe the next, holding two sides of human nature inside of a single vessel. Anyway, like I said, Okarun is feeling a bit like a third wheel to Jiji and Momo. They're old friends, and as they reminisce, it's hard for Okarun to push forward with his more domineering resolve. He's getting better, but he's still underconfident and tries to bury those feelings beneath the mission to get his nut back. So when Momo asks him what's wrong, he blurts out that he was thinking about his nut, which makes things more embarrassing for him, obviously. Jiji's boundless charisma keeps pushing through, and Okarun decides he needs to try to dominate the conversation. In an attempt to win her attention, he starts to talk about the Tsuchinoko cryptid at length. And somehow, Jiji even manages to turn this into an opportunity to take Momo's attention. He can't match Jiji on his own turf, and he really doesn't have to, but he just doesn't know that yet. But as Okarun starts talking to Jiji rather than just around him, he starts to realize something pretty revolutionary, and that's that he really likes Jiji. Jiji even expresses that he considers Okarun to be his friend, and he panics at the idea that Okarun might not feel the same way back. After Okarun announces that he's an awkward fellow after all, Okarun starts to warm up to Jiji against his own wishes. Jiji and Okarun, underneath it all, are actually fairly similar. They're both interested in cryptids, they both care deeply for Momo, and they both want to make friends. They just express themselves in very different, superficial ways. Soon, the gang arrives in the town and they're all fairly enamored by it. Momo is really interested in the hot springs, which are there due to the volcano heating them. The volcano erupted about 200 years ago and has been dormant ever since. It's a long way to the house, but Jiji is a prodigy, and he's incredibly athletic. He races ahead with ease, leaving the others in the dust, exhausted. When arriving at the house, Momo doesn't see any unusual or deadly aura, despite the psychics previously saying it was haunted. As they go inside, Okarun catches a glimpse of something in the woods, but hurries into the house with Momo and Jiji. Little do they realize that they're being watched. In the house, Momo looks around to investigate, but finds nothing out of the ordinary. So she sits and she watches TV, expecting that the spirit will show itself come nightfall, stating that this will be a walk in the park, as only weak spirits go off and hide. In the meantime, Momo decides to relax, with Jiji waiting on her every whim, which riles up Okarun's jealousy yet again. Momo asks him to sit with her, and she tells him that she's going to the hot springs, and that Jiji and Okarun are to play nice together until she comes back in the evening, as she runs off down the street, leaving Okarun and Jiji alone together. Want to play footy? The two of them play, with Okarun struggling to keep up with Jiji's athleticism. His overthinking kicks into overdrive again, and he's grateful that Momo isn't there to see his poor performance. He then starts to daydream about becoming good at football and then winning her affections through it. And it's at this moment that Jiji asks Okarun if he has a thing for Momo or not. Despite having accepted how he feels about Momo, Okarun is not able to properly articulate these feelings. Jiji states that he loves her face and her personality. It's clear that he's trying to figure out the vibe between the two of them, and this pushes Okarun to become a little bit more daring. The two of them start trying to outdo each other in their attraction and appreciation for Momo. This competitiveness is wonderfully expressed physically in their ongoing struggle during the football match. As Jiji states that he wins because he's Momo's lifelong friend, Okarun is about to leverage the fact that the two of them sort of kissed when they bumped teeth. But thankfully, he stops himself. Even though he's trying to outdo Jiji, I think it would have been pretty disrespectful to Momo if he had done that, and Okarun really does respect her. What matters here is that Okarun has shown that he is ready to fight for his love, and that's a great development. Meanwhile, Momo is at the bathhouse, relaxing, thinking about Okarun. She left because she wanted to give him the space to bond with Jiji, rather than getting in between them. Which is quite hilarious really, because she is all that they've been talking about since she left. She is literally between them. Her mind isn't stuck in some love triangle, she's thinking about what's best for Okarun, while she relaxes the leers of shadowy figures watch from behind the door. Back in the house, the two are still tussling about Momo. Okarun has shown his resolve, and despite everything, they're kind of becoming just buddies in a really weird way. It stops when Okarun discovers something, an extra hidden room in the house. The two investigate and notice that there's definitely something behind a sealed up wall. after some deliberation as to whether or not they should smash the wall in, they decide that it has to be done. They take a sledgehammer to the wall, smashing a large hole in it, revealing a dark room covered in sealing talismans. They panic. Neither of them know what this room is, nor why it's covered in these sealing talismans. Okarun decides that they should wait until Momo returns because she's more likely to know what to do and it's too dangerous for them to go in guns blazing. Fortunately, the door goes, and they race to greet Momo. Except it isn't Momo. It's 5 strange women. 5 incredibly creepy, strange women. Back at the bathhouse, Momo is starting to feel lightheaded and things get pretty uncomfortable. The men leering at Momo through the door come out to use the baths, citing that it's a mixed-gender use. They objectify and make crude, disgusting comments about Momo, a young woman alone in the hot springs, and then they make their move. She struggles to use her power due to her lightheadedness and the heat from the hot springs, and she struggles to escape. Just as things are looking pretty bleak, the bathhouse starts to fall apart. The water explodes and takes a bunch of the men out, and the walls fall on everybody but Momo, saving her from their revolting clutches. How? Turbo Granny, that's how. She says that it's her good fortune by just being there that saved Momo. However, I think that she had a bit more to do with it than that. Seeing these men about to assault Momo is deeply entwined with her backstory. As a yokai, Turbo Granny cared for the spirits of the girls that were assaulted in the tunnel she lingered in. So I don't think that she was about to leave this situation up to mere luck. Even if she says she didn't help, I think that she did. As Momo escapes the area to head back, she chats with Turbo Granny, who tells her that that house is bad, and that it's soaked in human blood. Jiji and Okarun are kept socially captive by the women who showed up. They make themselves very much at home and start to control the household, lording over Jiji the fact that he isn't paying rent while his parents are in hospital as a means of making him feel indebted to them. These are the Kito family. They own the land which the house is built upon. They're very controlling and even threaten Jiji with a gun. Their sway in this town is massive. They even manage to influence the police to ensure that the men who assaulted Momo can get away scot-free, as they show up at the house soon after. The Kitos start to threaten Jiji and become very suspicious of Okarun, even asking him a personal question about Jiji's favourite football team in order to make sure that they are actually friends. Fortunately, Okarun is able to answer, but when they ask about Momo and Jiji insists he doesn't know her, they know that he's lying. The Kito family are disturbing. Their sway and control over the town is frightening, but a very real entity. Systems of power and oppressive hierarchies can allow people to act outside of the law and get away with it. The role that the Kito family plays in this arc is indicative of how unchecked power can result in the most disturbing actions being accepted by and large. Because they have a finger in every pie, so they can do as they please. Momo kills time by checking out the Tsuchinoko snake shrine in the village, meeting its caretaker in the process. As she's about to look at the snake skin, Momo thinks about coming here later with Okarun, showing that her mind lingers on him still. But she only finds disappointment when the snake skin is tiny. However, the journey wasn't wasted. Momo learns the history of the village and it's worshipping the great snake. Legends state that when the serpent grows hungry, so too does the volcano, and it erupts to swallow up the town. In the old days, the village would offer a sacrificial child to the volcano to sate the snake's hunger and stay the volcano's wrath. But now the caretaker says that they simply pray to the skin to keep the volcano quiet. He tells that the legend of the Tsuchinoko is a fabrication and invented just to attract tourists. That this legend is innately harmful as it creates fear. This fear hampers people's ability to think for themselves and pushes them to do crazy things, like sacrificing children to a volcano. He stands to stop such things. As Momo walks away, she again turns her mind to Okarun, and how he'll feel when he learns that the Tsuchinoko doesn't really exist. These two are just obsessed with each other. I can't take it, honestly. Momo arrives at the house again and walks in stating that she's home, and finds the Kito family, standing over Okarun and Jiji, beaten into submission. Momo smashes one of the Kitos with her signature roundhouse kick before clearing house with her psychic abilities. One of them gets the better of her and starts to attempt to continue what was started at the hot springs. But Turbo Granny busts out to save Momo again, saving her from assault once, I believe as a coincidence, but twice? This old lady cat ghost really does love Momo. The head of the Kito family holds her own against Momo before revealing that they are the town's protectors and intend to sacrifice the three of them to the Tsuchinoko. The horror induced here is palpable. The Kito family dress their despicable actions up as though they are a necessary evil, protecting people from the wrath of the Tsuchinoko by sacrificing them. But this is just a disgusting lie, told by people who cling to power obsessively. As the snake uses fear to demand sacrifices to eat, so too do the Kito family use fear and sacrifices to maintain their control and powerful status in the village. They claim that they keep the village protected and the hot springs safe, but this doesn't look safe to me. They take what they want because they can, and use legends of great snakes as a means to create enough fear to justify what they're doing. Momo starts to sink under the house, with the Kitos looking on. Fortunately, Okarun and Jiji push them in, and everybody falls deep into the jaws of the house, into the lair of the Tsuchinoko. As they fall through the floor, Momo latches onto Okarun and holds him close, protecting him with her powers. It's not that she doesn't care about what happens to Jiji, but the high intensity of the moment paired with how quickly things are happening means that she instinctively reached out to the first and most important thing to her. We've already seen how her thoughts constantly linger on Okarun, at the shrine, at the hot springs, so it's only natural that she would reach out to him as a priority. Once they've fallen into the hole, it becomes clear that they're going to struggle getting back out, as the ceiling is just really high. But where are they anyway? They look down and see a confusing collection of buildings stacked atop each other. Jiji falls into this abyss, only to land on something that breaks his fall: the Tsuchinoko. Momo and Okarun get him away from it, and the three reunite as the Kito family start to worship this god snake. Or maybe not. Turbo Granny informs them that this is no Tsuchinoko, it's a kurogari, otherwise known as a Mongolian deathworm. This man-eating earthworm cryptid is usually found in the Gobi Desert and at max 2 meters long, but this worm is so much bigger than that. The Kito family have been nourishing it for over 200 years, and that's allowed it to grow to an unbelievable magnitude. This is no god, but the distorted belief of the Kitos have provided it with enough sustenance to make it become massive. It has no higher reasoning, it has no higher purpose, it's not some benevolent protector, it's just a mere parasite looking for its next meal. And any meal will do. And in a fitting strike of irony, the worm begins to attack and consume the Kito family themselves. Momo, Okarun and Jiji try to hide in the house, but Momo and Okarun drop to the floor in agony. Out of nowhere, Okarun attacks Jiji, in a frenzy and out of his mind. Jiji, panicked at what's happening, quickly acts and grabs to protect Okarun and Momo from themselves. Jiji thinks back to his parents, who also attempted the same. Jiji has seen some serious stuff, yet in the light of this, he relents and he pushes on. He has to wrestle with them both as they attempt this behavior repeatedly. Fortunately, Turbo Granny steps up to save Momo. Again. We can't actually pretend she's not trying at this point, I mean, come on. She explains that psychic waves are at the heart of what's happening here, that the Tsuchinoko has the ability to send people into a frenzy and try to end themselves. But not Jiji. Before he can understand why, Momo uses her powers to slash at him with shards of glass before turning the glass on herself. And this is the moment that I truly started to appreciate Jiji. Overwhelmed by everything around him, he shows us all that he isn't just some joker. He's more than that, and he cares deeply about the people in his life. He uses his own body to protect Momo as she drives a shard of glass deep into his arm. He's strong, he's a prodigy, and he shows us why, because he's willing to push himself beyond what other people possibly could. He carries Okarun, Momo, and Turbo Granny single-handedly. I mean, he's jacked, look at him. Sprinting with them across the houses, facing injuries at every turn, but still not stopping. As he's reaching the limit of what he could possibly do in his most desperate moment, he sees the evil eye. The creature that's been haunting him for years. His ghost. His shadow. His protector? The evil eye stands up against the Tsuchinoko and protects Jiji, even managing to bring Okarun and Momo out of their crazed state, bringing them back to their senses. Turbo Granny warns them to not trust the creature and definitely do not look it in the eye, as it drives people to insanity, the same power as the worm. Their psychic fields cancel each other out, allowing the gang to remain sane. Okarun transforms and slices the head off the worm, but it simply grows back. Clearly, this isn't as simple as just beating it to a pulp. The evil eye wants to be seen, and Jiji gives it what it wants, looking deep into its eye, and seeing the history of this yokai. It wasn't always an evil eye. He was once a boy who was locked away, kept in a state of borderline starvation. In life, he would watch as the children played, wishing, pleading to be part of it. He was locked up, but he still found joy in the very concept of playing, dreaming of it. But he was fated for something much crueler, to serve as a sacrifice to the Mongolian death worm. The Kito family were the ones who forced him into this role, using the fear of the village to allow these twisted figures of oppressive authority to do as they pleased. As the caretaker said, fear pushes people to do frightening things, including handing power to zealots who burn children alive to feed a subterranean parasite. Even in this darkest of moments, he wishes that he could have played. People who die with unresolved wants and emotions end up latched to the earth, and this boy's ghost is forced to be stuck in this world out of this powerful desire to have played. However, as a ghost, he meets another boy, who lives in the house that was built where he died, above the Tsuchinoko. He tries to take this opportunity to play. He's not an evil eye at this point by any measure, he's just the remnant of a boy who died a tragic, senseless death. But the worm caused this family's demise too, with the Kito finally electing to bury the boy to await death, just as the evil eye had died himself. In his desperation, he tries to untie the boy, but he can't interact with the world. His regrets morph into something dark and twisted as his soul distorts and merges with the trapped boy, and he takes on this sinister aesthetic. He was ignored for his whole life, and now he won't be ignored. People will look at him, and people will die. Jiji comes back to reality and swears that the evil eye is on their side. After all, surely he just wants to play. When it comes to Jiji, he's just a compassionate guy. He really does want to help and carries this burden. He suffered too, just like the eye. His ridiculous attitude brings joy to people, and he could also help bring joy to the evil eye. So he races to his final resting place at the base of this tree of houses. Momo chases him, with Turbo Granny telling him not to listen to the eye as it can't be trusted. He finds the boy's home, beneath the mound of dirt that he was buried in, and finds nothing but its charred, skeletal remains. He approaches the body, and this eye can't be evil. After all, it's protected him for so long. Turbo Granny tells him to stop, but he denies her assertions. He can trust the Eye because the Eye is an outcast just like them. As the worm's attacking them with its phlegm, Jiji is spirited away. He finds the spiritual form of the boy starved and alone. Jiji apologizes for being afraid. He sees his pain and he wants to help. He wants to give him his chance to play. Jiji swears to play with him, more than enough to fill up an entire lifetime. The Joker card is a trickster. Someone who can seem like a friend may actually be a foe. The potential of adventure awaits, but the naive must watch out. And Jiji was naive. The evil eye possesses Jiji, takes over his body, and swears to use it to kill all humans. Jiji, now possessed by the evil eye, manages to repel the worm, but soon his rage turns towards Momo. His lingering resentment is so strong that he says it will never go away. He uses the house that once trapped him as a power, an armor, collecting the grudges and hate of all those who were sacrificed to fuel his power, and they are formidable. The worm is no match at all. Jiji is the perfect vessel, his spiritual power is immense, and he is in physical perfection. And he's not on their side. He comes at Momo again, hitting her and kicking her around the room, easily managing to smash through her powers. He lifts his leg for a final smash, but Okarun jumps in and tells him that he won't get away with hurting Momo. Okarun struggles to match the eye's ferocity, so he grabs Momo and he escapes. Time's running out and the worm is spewing venom into the air. They need to drag it out into the open, into the sun, so that it will burn. With just one problem. It's all the way up there. But Okarun has a solution. To send just Momo ahead, he can launch her towards the hole. He argues with her, he stands up with fire in his words, and he tells her that he'll handle Jiji. And he pleads with her to go on ahead. This is such an important moment for them. They fight best when they're together. Their powers complement each other, their personalities blend so well, and they mesh together as one. Just like how Momo wanted Okarun to come with her to the house in the first place, they want to stay together now. But circumstance forces them apart, with the potential that one of them may not come back. He tells her to go on ahead, not just because he wants her to be safe, but because he believes in her. He knows that she will do whatever it takes to save him. This arc is so entrenched in anxiety, the anxiety of not knowing what the person you like is thinking, nor how you can really predict if they like you back. All the problems that Okarun has had to deal with when it comes to Jiji have been born from this instability, his inability to know whether or not Momo likes him back, or whether or not she might actually like Jiji. But all of that just washes away. He knows deep down that she won't rest until he is safe. And the way that he says that he will handle Jiji is night and day compared to his attitude towards him up until now. Okarun has struggled with Jiji because he was afraid that he couldn't handle him, that he might lose Momo to him. Now he knows that losing would mean truly losing Momo. So yes, he'll handle Jiji, no matter what. She grabs him by the hands, looks longingly into his eyes, and tells him that she promises that she will be back to save him. This moment of physical reassurance is intimate. Now that their lives are in such peril, all the uncertainty in their relationship just fades away into the background. They push into this moment of physicality as an inspiration for the future. The bravery that comes with this gesture is intrinsically tied to their promise to return to each other, because there's so much left unsaid. Okarun launches Momo into the air and she manages to escape the hole, like a multi-stage rocket, just in time, as the evil eye shows up and he's ready to kill. But Okarun doesn't back down. He needs to pay him back for hurting the woman that he loves. Up above, Momo grabs every piece of fabric that she can, and creates a long rope designed to reach from the hole to Okarun to save him. She ties them together and runs to the hole and launches it into the abyss. And it's too short. Like, way too short. She sets the house on fire to use the water from the fire brigade to draw the worm out of the ground and into the sunlight. Back with Okarun, the fight between him and the evil eye is intense. He summons everything that he can, but it doesn't look good. The eye traps him in a spiritual house and starts wailing on him. He's beating him within an inch of his life and tells Okarun that when he's done with him, it's Momo's turn. Okarun reaches forward and grabs his mouth to shut him up, telling him that he's done 3 things that he shouldn't have. First, he hurt Momo. Second, he defiled Jiji and forced him to hurt Momo. Okarun tells him to give him back his friend. The eye swings at him, but Okarun dodges and uses his exercise regime that he practices behind the school to beat the living daylights out of the eye. And he tells him the third thing. It's that he made him angry. This fight with the eye is Okarun's most pivotal moment across the arc. He's finally standing confidently toe-to-toe with Jiji, and not from jealousy. He acknowledges that Jiji cares deeply for Momo and he doesn't hold that against him. He fights the evil eye in part for Jiji and the shame that he would feel in hurting Momo. His jealousy is in the rearview mirror at this point. He said that he will stand and fight for Momo earlier in the arc and he meant it. This yokai is telling him how he will torture and kill her and he stops at nothing to ensure that this will never come to pass. And he wins. His willpower shines through and he beats the eye. After returning to his normal form, Okarun tries to help Turbo Granny, but they both get stuck in the worm's phlegm, and their only choice is to wait and rely on Momo standing by her promise to save them. The fire department shows up, but so do the police, who try to arrest Momo for arson. But the water does its job and the Tsuchinoko bursts out of the ground, baking in the sun, as it tries to hide behind the house for protection. Momo does what Psycho told her to. She picks up the fire truck and throws it, blowing down the cursed house once and for all. The worm writhes in the sun's rays and dies a fitting end. Momo squares up to the dead worm as it spits out a load of its phlegm, with the Kitos coming out with it. The old lady scolds her for her actions and blames Momo for what's to come. The earth shakes, and the volcano erupts for the first time in 200 years. The village starts to evacuate while Momo thinks deeply about the prophecy of the volcano. She figures out that the Tsuchinoko was a mere red herring, and that the legend really referred to the hot springs exploding, which happened earlier in the arc. Momo's rebellious by nature. She's a gyaru, she doesn't conform to societal expectations, and we see this in full swing here. She refuses to allow people's fear to return because such fear drives people to commit atrocities like human sacrifice. And she knows it's her duty to stop the volcano right here, right now, because she refuses to let herself take the blame, and she refuses to allow the Kito family's actions to be seen as justified. She takes the corpse of the worm and uses it as a long hose from the hot springs water supply all the way to the volcano's lava. She sprays the oncoming fires with the water to quell the flames, using the leftover phlegm from inside of the worm to enhance its ability to stop the fires. Once again, the Kito family attacks, interrupting her. This proves that the Kitos never really cared about the safety of the village. All they wanted was the power that they could draw from the legend for their own authority. They want the legend to be true, even if that means that the village is destroyed. The Tsuchinoko Shrine's caretaker shows up and helps to defeat the Kito family. He's a student of Granny Psycho. All the while, Momo tries to stop the fire. But the appearance of the evil eye causes things to get a little bit more complicated. Momo tries to reason with him, not wanting Jiji to become a murderer because of the yokai. And then she realizes that Okarun isn't with him. And she's terrified fearing the worst. Momo, the caretaker, and now the Kitos all team up to defeat the Eye, but they're simply no match for his raw power, and he has them on the ropes. But then, Mantis Shrimp, Taro, and Granny Psycho show up in a spaceship in glorious fashion, ready to save the day. Psycho shows off her fighting ability and stands toe-to-toe with the evil Eye, even outside of her domain. Taro breaks apart and surrounds the Eye with sealing talismans on his inside parts, stopping the evil Eye in his tracks. At least, for now. Mantis Shrimp's son, Chiquita, now healthy from his blood transfusions, pilots the ship to stop the volcano. The team debrief and Psycho wonders where Momo is. But she's gone. Momo's first and only concern right now is Okarun. She sprints as fast as she can back to the house, terrified at what the evil Eye might have done to him. While she runs, she thinks back to him, to the trust that he placed in her as they held hands for the first time, so scared that it might be the last. She gets to the house exhausted, and Shrimp smashes the remains of the building out of the way. She shouts for him, peering over the edge of the hole, seeing only a pit, filled with the volcano's magma. She stares into the maw, thinking of his face, his timid, reserved demeanor reverberating in her mind, the possibility that he's been consumed by the lava crushing her soul, freezing her eyes locked in a terrified glare. Momo screams for Chiquita to turn his attention to the hole, before telling Shrimp that she's going in after him. Shrimp tells her it's hopeless, but she doesn't care. She's ready to go in to find him. She swore, she promised, that she would save him. Momo refuses to believe that he could have perished, because that would mean that she failed him. She held him and assured him that she would come back. This adds so much incredible weight to their relationship. The moment that they held hands carried the entire potential of their future together, as if they only just realized what they could be when the potential for the end had occurred. Momo is ready to jump in, because it's simply not fair. It's not fair that she didn't keep this promise, and her life means so little without him in it. She breaks down and begs, prays for Okarun to be okay. Chiquita drags a lump of the Tsuchinoko's phlegm from inside the hole, and she wastes no time. She dives in with her hands tearing it to pieces in desperation, and she finds him, alive. She breaks into tears at the sight of him, and he looks at her and tells her that he never gave up faith, that she would come back to save them. He genuinely believes in her so much that he was positive that she would return, even as the lava poured down on them. Okarun walks out asking about his friend, Jiji, and starts to apologize for the fact that he couldn't stop the Eye, lamenting his own uselessness. He falls forward, landing on Momo in the process. He panics in typical Okarun fashion, trying to move away, but she doesn't let him. She wraps her arms around him and digs her face into his shoulder, saying that she's sorry for not being there when he needed her. With the light of the spaceship illuminating the background, the chapter closes as she holds him close, thanking goodness that he's still alive. As far as I'm concerned, this is the moment that Momo and Okarun's relationship became clearly romantic. My heart aches when watching the pain that she goes through as she assumes the worst. Up until this arc, their bond has had all the time in the world. They could afford to hide behind gestures or let words go unsaid because, as they say, they're always going to see each other tomorrow. But at this point, tomorrow might not be an option. Realizing this pushes Momo to act, to power through the barrier of physicality and hold him close. All the uncertainty of Jiji and the hectic lives they lead allow their feelings to constantly take a back seat, but this moment brings it into full focus. And as Okarun did when he watched Taro with Hana, Momo now understands the true depth of her feelings for him. When she runs for him, she realizes that her whole life without him is grey. In holding him, she sees that she can't afford to let the moment pass by. In thinking that she lost him, she now knows that she wants to have him, and she won't let him go. The power of the evil eye is made more apparent as they fail to exorcise him, and so he remains sealed within Taro for now. But more importantly, it's dinner time. I love these sequences because it's so great to see the team just being themselves and chatting. It's the best. I could watch an entire series of just this and I'd be pretty happy with it too. It's as hectic as ever, with Ida being especially vexed that she wasn't invited on the mission, especially considering that she's the leader, apparently. She also tells Mr. Shrimp that he isn't welcome on Earth. He's back now permanently because it's easier for Chiquita to get his transfusions here. Ida immediately melts when she sees Chiquita and hugs him, telling him that he's welcome to stay on Earth for as long as he likes, and that makes sense. Look how cute the little guy is. I mean, come on. Saiko and the Tsuchinoko shrine keeper, Manjiro, discuss Jiji's situation in greater length, scared that an exorcism could create permanent damage for Jiji. At that moment, after eating some pretty hot food, Jiji returns, out of nowhere. Turns out that cold liquid unleashes the eye and hot liquid suppresses him, because of course that's the case. But anyway, that's the situation for another arc. For now, what matters is Jiji's back. Saiko apologizes to Momo for letting the three of them go alone to the house, considering how dangerous it turned out to be. While Turbo Granny warns that the evil eye is a powerful yokai and won't be controlled. But for now, everyone just decides that the best solution is to carry hot water flasks around in case Jiji gets cold water on him. And then the most important thing in all of Dandadan happens. We learn that Shrimp's name is actually Peeny Weeny. Absolute cinema. Finally, Jiji can be reunited with his parents, and the squad pack themselves into the car to drive to the hospital. Okarun and Momo sit in the back seat together. There's an air of closeness between them since the end of the mission, a new level of intimacy that came from them crossing that physical barrier together. Momo gently nudges her pinky across Okarun's. He pulls away and apologizes for it, clearly physically flustered by touching her hand. They held hands already, sure, but that moment was high stakes. Its meaning could be tied up in any number of high-intensity reasons, after all. This is quieter, more intimate, just like the way that their honesty in the Serpo arc's big battle resulted in their gentle, romantic look in the nurse's office. We see here that they've taken a big step towards each other in the light of this arc. Momo tells him to put his hand back and that he doesn't need to worry so much. He places it back, and Momo once again drifts her fingers over his, going a bit further this time. They both look away from each other, but their faces blush, and their stares longing. Everything, all the chaos that's happening in the car around them fades away into the background as they're engrossed in this moment between them. Their feelings have taken a back seat until now, but now, in the back seat, they're front and center. The world stands still, and all that exists is each other, and the space between them. Space that Momo wants to close. She playfully walks her fingers, stepping them further up his hands. Okarun, at the limit of what he can take, says that he doesn't get the game. She says that she doesn't know what he means, and Momo's just about to wrap her hand in his fully. And Jiji shouts to Momo about Taro. The world comes flooding back, and neither of them are able to look at each other, completely embarrassed by the tension and the shock of their moment coming crashing back into reality. These feelings that they have for each other are so natural that they don't need to be necessarily spoken to be expressed. Nothing will stop them from being acknowledged, And now that they know what it is that it means to hold each other intimately, they're desperate to do it again. At the hospital, Jiji tries to keep up his Joker attitude, but when he sees his parents alive and well, he breaks down. To close the chapter and the arc, we see the Kito family finally being arrested for their crimes. All except one. Naki Kito, the matriarch. She sheds her skin and swears revenge against Momo Ayase, an enemy of the Subterraneans. This arc is intoxicating. It's one of my favorites for so many reasons. I love the plot, I love the characters and the action, all of it. But the progress between Momo and Okarun and how tightly woven their story is with what happens in the plot is what makes this arc truly shine in the outstanding story that is Dandadan. It's a love story at its core, we all know this by now, and the Cursed House arc is rife in the most inspiring, heartwarming romance of all the series. All nestled inside a story that keeps us engaged constantly. We obviously aren't finished yet. The evil eye is still a threat, and there's still so much progress to go before Okarun and Momo can express their feelings more clearly to each other. But for now, this is a victory. For now, this is enough. If you guys like this format, it's a bit different from my other content and you want to see a bit more of it, there's a lot more arcs to go. Leave a comment and let me know. Because I want to get these out and keep us all sane after the end of the first season and while we wait for the second. So, anyway, until next time, see ya!